Hello everyone, Republic Jim here. I'm finally having a chance to make another video. My schedule's been pretty crazy lately between work and home projects and other things, so unfortunately I just haven't had the time or the energy to do anything. But today is a beautiful Sunday, nice relaxing evening, nothing else to do. I finally have a chance to do this again. So I'm in the barn today, but I'm not here to do one of my workout videos. Today I'm here to talk about EDC, the why and what. Just in case anybody doesn't know, EDC stands for Everyday Carry and refers to those items that we have with us all the time. Some people just automatically think of firearms or other personal defense items when mentioning EDC. That's not the point of this video, although I certainly don't have anything against that, and I encourage people to have a concealed carry permit. But for this particular video, I'm just discussing regular, useful, or emergency items that I carry all the time. So first of all, the why. A lot of people, especially on prepper sites and stuff, talk about having all their gear in their vehicle and carrying a bug out bag and just all the kits that they have there. And I've seen people say, I don't need to carry anything on me because I have everything I need in my vehicle. And that was kind of the way I used to feel. Then in 2012, anybody that's lived in this county for long, they'll remember the windstorm of 2012, and I had all that handy gear in my truck sitting there at work, and suddenly the windstorm hit and snapped off trees everywhere and knocked out power countywide, and there was a power line laying directly across my truck. And considering that everything was out countywide, I felt pretty certain that there was no power on that line, but I really didn't feel like risking my life just to test that theory, so I left the truck alone until the PUD could come and fix that power line. And at that point, all of that gear I had in my truck, it might as well have been somewhere else completely. I couldn't access any of it. And fortunately, I was at work at the time. I had everything I needed, but it made me really stop and think that, in an emergency situation, if I had needed anything, I didn't have any access to it. So at that point, I started looking at things that I could carry all the time, both just for practical use day to day, and then also emergency things. So first of all, the really basic, obvious thing is I carry some keys. I've got this handy little item here, so it kind of fit in there like a Allen wrench set or something and fold out. But I carry just a cheap flashlight on there, puts out a decent amount of light, comes in really handy for opening locks in the dark and such. And if the power goes out suddenly, I've got that just as a backup item. Goes along with everything else that I have. Then I always tend to carry a pocket knife now. I didn't used to, but I've become a believer. The one that I'm normally carrying is this Cold Steel Fin Wolf, which actually is not the best selection for just everyday cutting and opening up cardboard boxes and such. But the reason that I chose it is because it's more of a outdoor bushcrafting type knife. Has a Scandi grind, and which is really useful for any kind of bushcrafting, woodworking stuff, feather sticking, batoning, whatever. The Cold Steel has a really stout triad locking system, so it's almost as good as a fixed blade. And the spine is extremely sharp on it too, which works great for ferro rods. So that's just a handy knife for me to have around, because anytime I might be going out in the woods, I could quite happily use that as almost a primary knife. I still use it as a backup, but you know, it's nice to know that I have it along at any time. Then anybody that has known me for long in Republic, they know that I pretty much never leave the house anymore without having this on my belt. I just pack it with me wherever I go, and I'll get into contents on that in a little bit, but normally I just always strap it on my belt before I leave the house. And then just for convenience and for a little bit more use when I go out in the woods, I actually have a similar setup, but with a drop leg. And it also has a spot for a good flashlight and a pocket that I can carry my ham radio in. But I have this one that I just use exclusively if I go out on a SAR mission or if I'm out working on our property or something like that. It's the outdoor one rather than the EDC pouch that I carry everywhere else. So anyway, I'm going to move the camera and get set up so I can discuss a little bit of the contents of that pouch and just kind of give a brief explanation. So first of all, understand this is just set up for my needs, what I think would be most useful for me. I happen to live in a very rural setting, and especially during the winter, any drive to and from work or town or wherever, if I were to break down or slide off the road, it could turn into a wilderness type survival situation, or when I'm out in the hills on a SAR call out or doing a side job or whatever, I get in some places where I need more outdoor type gear. Somebody that lived in the city would probably want to pick some different items, but this is what I have. So first off, I've got just a good quality pen that I carry there. That's just an item that comes in handy all the time. It's nice to always have one on me. I've got a pouch here where I carry a cell phone. It happens to be an old school one for the Chamber of Commerce that I pack with me and answer that when people call the chamber. I also carry my iPod in that pouch normally, but happen to be using that to film right now. So just real quick, I carry around a charging cable, another inexpensive but fairly bright flashlight, thumb drive that has various useful applications and emergency software for at work. I'm not going to go over everything in here, but just kind of hitting some of the highlights. Got a decent little butane torch. Comes in pretty handy at times. And frequently in the winter, I will have a space blanket in there. I typically carry one of those in my drop leg setup year-round. Got some lightweight exam gloves that I keep just in case I need to do first aid. Haven't had to, fortunately, but I like to have them there. And a good multi-tool. That thing gets used frequently. Great to always have it on hand. Some wet fire, some commercial fire starter material. And I also carry a large, decent quality ferro rod. So as you can see, I kind of like to be able to start a fire if necessary. And then I have just basic stuff like earplugs. I've got an N95 mask in there also, which I'm not going to dig out right now. And just a collection of Band-Aids. Just basic stuff that could come in handy at any time, and sometimes does at roller skating when people pick up slivers. I carry other charging cables and things like that at times, so I kind of change it out a little depending on what I'm going to be doing, what my needs might be. But in general, I try to always have emergency lighting, fire starting, just basic tools, phone, iPod, pen, that sort of thing. And then if I'm going to be doing something that requires any sort of specialized stuff, I can usually fit it in there too, depending on what I feel like taking out. But at any rate, that gives an idea of kind of what I typically carry and why. I hope that makes sense. Feel free to leave any comments or suggestions down below. Thanks. Talk to you later.